So there is something about me that not everyone here knows. It's not a big secret, it's just that something I just don't normally share. But some of you know this because some days it's obvious. The something is, I have a tattoo. It's a very special tattoo, an original design, actually. There are only 4 people who have this tattoo. This is the logo for a retreat that is just for women, so women only, that the 4 of us founded over 20 years ago. And it continues to this day. I am going to use some grown-up language here and tell you the name of the program. The program's name is the Vulva Dialogues. And the story of how this was created is a whole nother sermon. As you might be able to see, the 4 tattoos are varied a little in color, but the design is the same, as is the location. We decided to put our first ever tattoo somewhere that wouldn't change its shape when we got into our older years. We were banking on the idea that our ankles wouldn't sag. We wanted to put it somewhere that the forces of gravity just couldn't get to it. Of course, now that I'm older, I know that my ankle might not sag, but it might swell. The design speaks to our personal experiences, the 4 of us, our personal experiences of the divine and the sources of our faith. 3 of us are Unitarian Universalists, and all 4 of us are pagan. So the logo has a pentacle at its base with other elements of the earth. We created an intentional ceremony and found an artist who was willing to participate in that ceremony. It was and still is more than just body art. It is a personal statement of our faith and a reminder that we are deeply connected to our bodies, to spirit, and to each other. I, who am the beauty of the green earth and the white moon among the stars and the mysteries of the waters, I call upon your soul to arise and come unto me. For I am the soul of nature that gives life to the universe. From me all things proceed, and unto me they must return. Let my worship be in the heart that rejoices, for behold, all acts of love and pleasure are my rituals. Let there be beauty and strength, power and compassion, honor and humility, mirth and reverence within you. And you who seek to know me, know that your seeking and yearning will avail you not unless you know the mystery. For if that which you seek you find not within, you will never find it without. For behold, I have been with you from the beginning, and I am that which is attained at the end of desire. That is my daily prayer. Months ago, when Reverend Allison talked about my offering a final sermon to you as your interim, we found this particular morning to be an ideal Sunday. We wanted to swap roles, and today is an area event, and an area event that speaks really personally to the ministry of Reverend Allison. When we looked at the theme of the month, though, embodiment, she asked me, what does a program of faith formation look like that's embodied? What is an embodied faith formation program? And the second big question, what does it mean to embody Unitarian Universalism? Those are interesting questions, right? But since that meeting, so much has happened both within our denomination and in the larger world. So the question of embodying Unitarian Universalism has reached a new depth and a sense of desperation among so many of us. Those questions are profound, they are complex, and they are so timely. Because today there is a war being waged against our bodies. It has a long history. It did not come from out of nowhere. It has not always been this way, but it has been happening for much of human history, so as far as we can tell. It has escalated. And as Unitarian Universalists, we are called to do our personal work to prepare for the changes needed to dismantle the prevailing myths. Today's sermon title, Touching Our Strength, is a title of a book by Carter Hayward, a book whose subtitle is The Erotic as Power and the Love of God. The Erotic as Power and the Love of God. Hayward, a lesbian feminist theologian, Episcopal priest, and former professor of theology in Cambridge, dared to equate unalienated erotic power with the love of God. Some words put together in one sentence, right? Unalienated erotic power with the love of God. The book doesn't use mystical language, but somehow Carter Hayward lifts up the mystical experience that is at the heart of both a religious and a sexual life. This book was published in 1989 and has never been more relevant. Hayward writes, patterns of sexual and gender injustice are linked inextricably to those of racial, economic, and other structures of wrong relation. It follows that the liberation of anyone depends on the tenacity of the connections and coalitions we are able to forge together. To do this work, we must be able to envision those connections and embody this tenacity. Just as important, we must be willing to pursue critically and imaginatively the truths of our own particular lives in relation. The difference, for example, our race privilege or lack makes to how we experience the world, the part played by our class, our gender, our religion, our nation, our sexual desires, and relationships. To speak of the erotic or of God is to speak of power in right relation. As pastoral counselor and family therapist Leslie Townsend advises, we need to breathe, and to breathe deeply, in order to recover our essential spirituality, the sense of communion and of connectedness, of kinship with the rest of creation. What a great image. Today's Western culture war on bodies is based on the premise, I would say a myth, that there is only one right, one holy body. And that body is male, that body is white, that body is privileged, that body is strong and able, and that body is made superior through its intellect. Hayward's book, actually, this was Hayward's life work, was to eliminate the dualisms between sex and God, between sexuality and spirituality, between body and spirit, and pleasure and goodness. This dualism Hayward implicates as being historically used by the church to dull the edges of human and divine experience. But as faith formation researcher John Roberto concludes, embodiment in faith is not an exclusive experience of our sexual selves. It is an experience of every aspect of our being that is both mind and body, sometimes starting with the mind, but many times starting with the body. We have been trained to listen to the former and distrust the latter at a cost of losing the most important right relation, the one with ourselves. So, exactly what is embodiment? A good question? Literally, it's our body selves, the ones many of us are ignoring. It is our sacred, precious flesh that we make come alive in so many ways. Theologian James Nelson said that it is fundamentally who we are as body selves who experience the emotional, cognitive, physical, and spiritual need for intimate connection, both creaturely and divine. Body, breath, and consciousness are connected through this word. the sacred sense of being exactly where we are supposed to be. Take a breath. Breathe in. All right. Breathe in the air in this room, the air that's next to each other. This is a sacred space, a sacred time, our sacred bodies. There are many reasons many of us do become disembodied or ignore most or some of our body's wisdom. We distrust our body. We would never consider our bodies as temples. Some of those reasons are birth trauma. It starts early, illness and surgeries, abuse and assaults of all kind, unexpressed grief and loss that we hold on to, earlier religious experiences, mixed messages of beauty and strength. For many, it's a struggle with the religious idea of incarnation, that we literally take in the body of Christ. The reasons for disembodiment are many, and they can be complicated. But an embodied faith formation or an embodied spirituality views all human dimensions, body, vital world, heart, mind, consciousness, as equal partners in bringing the self, the community, and the world into a fuller alignment with the mystery out of which everything arises. So forgive my attempt at simplicity. I know we Unitarian Universalists struggle with the simple, clear, and let me just say, embodiment to me is empowerment. Power with, not power over. Power with life, power with spirit, power with flesh, and power with love. So back to those two questions. Remember those? The first question that Reverend Allison asked me, what does an embodied faith formation program look like? So let me start with the story. When I was the director of religious education at South Church in Portsmouth, I got a phone call from a parent of a young child who said she called to apologize to me. I'll take that, right? This was a family. These parents were extremely skeptical of my program, of the program that we had at South Church. The parents believed we weren't doing enough to help their child understand Unitarian Universalism. So the parent tells me that the day before, their toddler was in the bathroom. A toilet training session, apparently. And the child got really excited and yelled for her parents to come into the room. So the parents got up and they came in. They were ready to applaud and to do kudos. And instead, when they opened the door, they found their 3-year-old on the toilet holding up the latest issue of UU World, pointing to the chalice on the cover and saying, "Look, Mom, look, Dad, my church is on the cover of this magazine." I was so proud of that young Unitarian Universalist, so excited that her brain could recognize the familiar symbol and that her heart could leap with joy that she was connected to a larger creation. And it doesn't matter where you find spirit or you find mystery, right? We're moved in a lot of ways in a lot of places. An embodied faith formation program understands one thing, that the church is the curriculum. Does that make sense? That the whole church is the curriculum. That all of us absorb and internalize the messages of Unitarian Universalism, the message that each of us matter in the world and to each other through multi-generational relationships, by spending time in spaces that are just different than any other spaces that are in our lives, through activities such as meditation and prayer, studying sacred text, yoga, holding hands in a circle. And then there's this enlarged view of acts of hospitality, so caring for physical bodies, making meals, sweeping floors, washing dishes. Sometimes we do those things on our own, but mostly we're doing those communally. Studies of young adults tell us that they want opportunities to feel emotionally affected. What they describe is called expressive communalism. Expressive communalism, an experience of the religious life that has an emphasis on embodiment and community, using one's body in worship, in living out or embodying their faith's teachings in service, and in a desire for a life in a particular faith community that can be both personally fulfilling and serve others. They desire a theologically grounded belief that is also an expressive, embodied spiritual experience. That's who is walking into our church. In many ways, the program here at UUCN is already embodied. Our teens are rocking babies. There's adults coloring. There are teens making coffee for us on Sunday mornings. There are greeters that smile and shake our hands. There are some folks singing in the choir. There are adults who are rote mentors, who are witnessing to the hearts and the minds of our young people. There are many of us holding the hands of those grieving among us. That's an embodied faith formation program. Minds and bodies and spirits, alive, alert, and accepting. So that, to me, was the easy question. What's an embodied faith formation program, right? To me, the next one's really hard. What does it mean to embody Unitarian Universalism? For me, at this moment in time, it means to remember that the largest organ in our bodies is our skin and not our brains. Those in the medical profession, am I right? The largest organ in our bodies is our skin and not our brains. Our denominations and this congregation's call to actively make social and institutional change starts by making the hardest changes of all, the personal ones. We have to dig deep to understand how we've embodied our own worldviews. We have to understand that most of our thoughts are unconscious. Even the thoughts of those people we simply cannot understand, those are also, for them, unconscious thoughts. Until we come to know how we've reached our own values and feelings about ourselves, we are somewhat unprepared to confront the injustice. Embodying Unitarian Universalism means to move ourselves emotionally, and then we can move intellectually and morally. And that comes from a musician. Surprise? If we've answered question number one well, all right, if we've answered the question what an embodied faith formation program looks like, then the answer to this question is made easier because while we're doing that work, we're holding each other, we're offering safe space, we're providing comfort, we're offering rituals and familiarity. We do all of that as we make the demand for the world to stop hurting its most precious bodies. Embodying Unitarian Universalism means that we take our precious body selves and work through the fear of intimate connection with each other so that we know in every fiber of our being that we are valued and valuable. And with the strength that comes from healing our personal hurts, we have the courage to live our values through empathy, counter-resistance, strategic deployment of sacred messages, and renewed empowerment. As Hayward said in 1989, it follows that the liberation of anyone depends on the tenacity of the connections and coalitions we were able to forge together. To do this work, we must be able to envision those connections and embody this tenacity. And that starts here with our own body selves. Can you take a deep breath? Actually, they're free. Take as many as you want. Breathe in this moment. Breathe in the connection we have with each other. Breathe in the space that we've given each other. We came in as individuals. We're here together creating magic and moments and looking around to each other to say, you are precious. You are loved. May it be so today and every day.
two hands, with my own two hands. I can make peace on earth with my own two hands. I can clean up the earth with my own two hands. I can reach out to you with my own two hands, with my own two hands. I'll make it a brighter place with my own two hands. Make it a safer place with my own two hands. Gonna help the human